Okay, so hi, I'm Kyle Meredith. This is Ryan from Guster, and he's back.
Am I in 3D right now?
You're not in 3D. You're just in their world.
Oh, I mean, they're wearing goggles.
They're in your world.
They're wearing the goggles.
Yeah, you've got the goggles
The
on.
Oculus.
Think about how ridiculous you look right now to
But they
everyone
can't go
else.
anywhere because that's stationary. They can't walk around me. They can only look around.
Yeah, you can look around.
Oh, but there's really nothing.
And go ahead and look around because it's very,
Yeah. Well,
we'll make it interesting for you here in just a second.
yeah. Or in the future, which technically, I guess we're in the future.
Something like that. Listen, I've got your new record here on a promo CD as I hold it.
Wow, I didn't even know they still made CDs.
Evermotion, that's right. They do still. Although there's no artwork with this one, so it's kind of bummed.
Oh,
you know.
sorry.
I don't know how the actual experience
man.
is. It's a fun record. It's a really fun record.
Fun?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's an extremely fun record.
Wow.
The melodies are everywhere. I'm in love with it. I'm not kidding.
Thank you.
It's a great record. I know a lot of the story that you've talked about has a lot to do with Richard Swift.
Yep.
One of my all-time favorite producers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Swifty's awesome.
Me too.
The stamp he puts on things.
Yeah.
And from what I've learned about it, like the quickness versus the older stuff that you guys have done, the other records, like how you bet 4 weeks versus a year, something
Done
like
your
that.
research.
I've done my research.
It's a lot of work every week. Every week you talk to someone?
You don't have to talk any, by the way. I'm going to tell you all of the answers.
Pretty awesome. It's like, well, you know all this stuff. You know all my quotes. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I had to do an interview, not to circumvent this,
Yeah.
but I had to interview somebody for the first time for this. I do film composing, so I had to interview another film composer, and I got really nervous. And I kind of had this moment where I was like had real empathy for what you're doing. Was like, how much do I learn about someone before? Because part of it's just like I want to have a discussion, but I also want to ask all the questions that you have to ask. So I have now. This was one of the first times I've sat down with someone since then, and I have this whole other appreciation for you. And you're like, oh, I've already read all this stuff, so now I'm going to take it further. And I'm like, wow, it takes a lot of work.
Do you know how it ruins you, though? I wish I could study for any conversation that I have ever.
Oh, you mean in real life?
Yeah, in real life. I wish I could
because you come
do that.
in and you know all
Yeah,
this
so
stuff.
I've got all this because otherwise,
yeah.
it takes out, it doesn't take out the awkward moments. There's going to be awkward moments. But.
Right. That's like if you go on a date, like do you go find them out on the internet, or do you just play everything, or do you do it and then pretend not to? I
used to do it when I was young, like my first few girlfriends, and we're talking like middle school and stuff like that. Like I would write down everything that I want to ask.
Yeah,
beforehand.
exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. It's like, and then that would be like, hey, how are you? And just go down this
then
list and be done with it. It's like, I'm going to go by.
Right. There's like a flow chart. If yes, you go here.
Right.
But now look at your job. So that you've obviously
okay.
ended up in the right place. Sorry. I'll try not to do that.
Because it's still not 3D.
No, it's not 3D.
We're not
I'm
going to
call
that.
I'm gonna call it 3D.
Yeah.
It's so much more
Maybe
fun.
we'll do VR in 3D.
VR just doesn't sound as good as 3D.
It's not as fun.
Not yet.
Anyway. So on this record,
Anyway,
that's what I was wondering though, because for a band that's been doing it as long as you guys have, and you've always played around with your sound, like you've always done that, but this seems like this is one of the biggest jumps, the departures, as a critic would say. Like, do you do that because you're just looking to mix things up? Do you do that because, again, as a band for a long time, you're thinking, oh, do I need to stay relevant to the kids or whatever it is? I mean, is any of that part of the conversation?
I think that drive. If the question is what's driving us to I think the main thing is to be better at our jobs, and ultimately all these sort of sonic departures, that how we evolve, are ultimately to serve the music. So if it doesn't serve, we feel like we're writing songs. We've always written pop songs, even on our first couple records, which I don't really like. They were still songs in the way that these are songs.
Sure.
You can sit down and play them. There's a melody, there's a lyric, and there's chords, and you can sing them. So I think it's also just like we're just interested in stuff.
Yeah.
We're really into
right. Everyone should be. I guess it's because that sounds really normal for you to say that, but that's not always the case with every band.
No, and some bands do it, and then some bands do it, and then they lose people. Like my sweet spot for Wilco is Not Now. Right. It was Yankee. Right. It was Summer Teeth. That was my era, and they keep going, and Nels is pushing them somewhere else, and I respect that, even though that music doesn't touch my heart as much as it, or to talk about the Jacket. Here we are, and the record. What was it they did with
Z?
Yeah. I mean, that for me was like it hit me so hard, and I'm really fan of the band. Still, I saw him at Bonner, lost my mind, and I like where they're going. But for me, like, and I'm like, and I don't want them to make that record again.
Sure.
So, but I appreciate that they're going on all these kind of adventures too. And I think it's like, yeah, I think it's endemic of any artist that just even wants to make something. You're like, oh, I want to learn how to do something. And then I want to, I think we want to keep going.
So you've got to deal with your own fans like that, though, and especially knowing how you feel in those situations. But for a band who has a fan base in the way you guys do, and you have one of those rabid fan base that will stick through you and tell you when they don't like something. Like,
yeah, although this era has, like, once we started with acoustic guitars and bongos,
Right.
and that was a thing, and it really was. Visually, it was a thing. Sonically, it was a thing. It affected our writing and everything. And when we stopped doing that, that was like the big seismic shift. And I hate using this metaphor, but it's like when Dylan plugged in his guitar for our fans.
Sure.
Like, the bongos, and Brian just, like, he was like, I want to. He was listening to Talking Heads and REM. He's like, I just want to have a backbeat, man. I can't do that with this. And so that for us was our big sort of break. And when we lost our sort of purists fans, I think, at that. And then the people since then generally are now into it because of the adventure. And they're just like, oh, I like that you guys do this.
So you've kind of dwindled them down.
Then, but, you know, and in a lot of ways, we got a lot of people like Swift hates bongos, like didn't want to put any bongos. Like, there's no way he would have ever listened to our band, worked with our band, and if we had had bongos. So, like, yeah, we lost a lot of people. I mean, we lost some people, but we also bring some people into the fold. So it sort of works itself out. But yeah, I think the fans that are with us at this point, like 25 years in, are in for the journey of the thing. And we also, you know, we try and honor that, and that we're not making an electronic instrumental record.
Although when you first hear Simple Machine, which was kind of the first thing that I heard off this record, like,
whoa,
that's Guster?
Right, but in the context, like, we had a song off, I think it was Easy Wonderful, that was Do What You Want, that had a synth bass line. It was sort of like us playing with these textures. So, and, you know, and also, I don't know, like, I grew up on New Order and The Cure and the Smiths and Depeche Mode. So to me, these, like, sort of synthy textures aren't foreign. It wasn't like, what is this keyboard?
Well, it's just, again, that mindset you have of a band. It's the idea of a band.
Sure.
Which, you know, every band, whether they want to be or not, is basically every band is stamped in an era in some way. You know, when they first become famous, that kid was in college at that time. Now that's your era, you know, so it's having to deal with all that. So, you know, when you hear it, it's like, and for me, again, cool. I love when a band does. I love when they take it. So it's not for me. But I know that's something you guys have to deal with.
But that's, and to answer your question, why do we keep doing it? I think that's us clawing and scratching at not being stuck as a 90s band or a 2000s band, you know, because we don't want to be a nostalgia band. We don't want it to be just about the time when you made out in the back of your car to Lost and Gone Forever, which is great. And I celebrate that because I'm a fan of bands, hence me saying about Wilco or Z, you know, about Summer Teeth or Z, like those records. But we also are trying really hard to make songs that can slot into our set and our career that feel like, like you like the record, right? And it's like, wow, this is cool, and now you're kind of in on this journey with us, and that's really why we're still a band. Like, because if we didn't do this, I wouldn't be here. We'd made the same record 4 times, and everybody would be like, okay, that sucks.
That's done. I'm going home.
That's it.
Right.
Or just play me that record that I liked in 1999. So, you know, to varying degrees of success, that's what we're hoping to do every time.
You didn't become Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Yeah, I don't want to bash. I mean, I have a lot of bands on the
They
tip
were
of my
going through your
tongue
head, right,
about the bands that don't do this.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, I get it. And, but, you know.
Right. The other part of your fans, too, and I probably could have done the research on it. This is one of those points where I didn't on purpose.
That's great.
Right?
That's great.
So going through your Twitter feed, I find one that is hilarious. First, that it happened. Second, that you retweeted it when the guy's like, I love going to the Guster show and I'm having so much fun. And then they got up there and started doing their God songs and I don't like them anymore. Now, that's something that has always been part of a conversation about Guster. Like, if you didn't know Guster, it's like, wait, are they a Christian band? Are they not a Christian band?
I love that.
And that's always been a thing because when I go back and listen to songs, it's not.
No.
It's like you're not a Christian band. No. But there's always been something there about that.
Well, because it's like, you know, there's
that?
there's like God talk in some of these. Like in fact, we were just rehearsing an old song we're gonna try and play, All the Way Up to Heaven, and like we have a couple of these songs that kind of deal with like say the word Jesus, talk about God, talk about heaven, but it's always pretty like sly, and there's usually another like angle to it if you care to look, and some people don't, which is fine. I'm not here to tell you how to interpret anything, but so I think that's part of why it comes from, and then it's just I think it's hilarious because the 3 founding members were all Jewish. We all had bar mitzvahs.
Well, see, I found that part too,
and that's why it's all okay with me.
Right.
It's just like whatever you want, man. If you think that this is like a Christian band, then you're welcome to it. I don't. It's fine, but I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about our band. And
when did you find that you were first having to deal with that side of things?
I think there was that record. It was either one or it was. Maybe it was Easy Wonderful. I'm sorry, I can't even keep record straight. It's only been 7, but like there was 2 songs about Jesus on it, and they're like, and they're pretty, and they're not. If on first glance they're kind of like super pro. Like one's called "Stay With Me, Jesus," and it's like, okay, so you hear that, and it's sort of. But there's another interpretation probably that I was putting in there. So I think that's where it kind of came from the beginning.
So to go a little bit deeper on that, then for you when you're writing that kind of stuff, and so okay. We've established you're not a Christian band.
Yeah,
like, that's one thing.
Maybe. Maybe.
But at the same time, like you don't mind getting spiritual or whatever it is in the song. Like, and you have when you put that out there. Of course, it's always the thing. Talking about fan bases as we are right now, like putting that out there and saying, what are you gonna do with that? Is that gonna upset you? Or like,
Well, I mean, I think ultimately, and I'm finding this in so many things, and I don't know, this like. God, this is so pretentious, but the artist journey, whatever that means to you, like that's something as like a 43-year-old man who's like trying a lot of things. I think about this stuff a lot, and I think
I thought you meant the band journey for a second. No, that's a different conversation.
It's a different conversation. Happy to have that conversation too. It's all about you gotta be able to rep everything that you do, and then hopefully if you can stand behind it and it's not cynical, then people will fall in line. But ultimately, that's your only goal as a musician, as a painter, as any kind of artist, is just to make something you believe in. And if people can come in underneath the tent that you're building, then that's great. And if they can't, you still have the integrity of knowing that you made something that you're proud of. So that's always been our thing, is like, can we stand behind this? And we keep in mind where we came from, and we've always had melody as part of it. Arrangement's kind of a cool thing. We never talked about groove in the first half of our band, which is probably why I don't like our band from the first couple records. Because
that was a different interview where you were talking about if you could tell one of your past self one thing.
Go listen
to
Marvin Gaye or the Velvet Underground or something. Yeah. But so I think. We ultimately are trying to please, and there's 4 of us in this band, and so like finding that Venn diagram where we can all stand behind it and be like, we're proud of this. That's literally like 95% of the battle, and then hoping that we've done something that other people can appreciate. But then if they don't, it's out of your control because you've done everything you can do to make something great that you love that isn't produced from this cynical place of like, well, I think they want us to do this. I don't really like it, but I think that's what they want, and that can work for selling. And this isn't. I don't use the word sellout. Yeah, I don't use the word sellout, but it's like, but then you're not making music or art from a real place. You're making it from some kind of. And I don't even know how to. I mean, I know how to do that, but I just don't think I could do it convincingly. Yeah. So I always think that we just try and do something that makes us laugh or that makes us, gets us off on some level, and then it's like, oh, hopefully it'll work. And so far, even this is like, oh, cool, well, good.
And it's worked.
I mean, it was working for some people,
Since we're on the topics not to use at a dinner party with religion, when I look at this, so going through the lyrics, and I wonder, like, is this a political record?
I mean, no, not overt. I don't know.
So I'll run through just a few of these.
I like where you're going with this, though.
I want to run through a few of these. The song Endlessly. No, that's not it. Doing it by myself. That's where it starts. The game is fixed. Now they'll confess to their crime. Simple machine. Wise up scarecrow. This is treason. Whoa. Gangway. Swinging with my fist. Shouting out with these lungs. And it is just what it is. Which seems to really go down the rabbit hole with that. With presidents and thieves on thrones.
Yeah.
I do know that when a writer is writing, especially a lyricist, songwriter, and you're writing in a short amount of time, themes will just pile on. One theme may pile on over a lot of songs. But it's kind of interesting to go down through this record, and of course, here we are in 2016, and it seems politics is, what everybody's talking about anyway, and like, Do you put a political record out there, or is it just how it lined up?
No, I mean, I think lyrically, there's two things. One, to speak to this, one is I've never set out, even though I've always wanted to write a record about something. Like this is songs
Concept
are going to be about this, or even like a lot of times, just the way that I write, and I've written, the vast majority of the lyrics is like melody is first. I'll spit out a word, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I kind of reverse engineer it to make the title make sense, or these little glues. And this is actually how I found out that David Byrne writes music too, which made me really happy, where he just is like, blind, 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 blind. And like, oh, blind. And then he's, reverse engineer. So I'll do all this, and then it has to fit the melody. It's got to sound good and all this stuff. And then I'll be like, oh, I think this song is kind of about this. And then we'll do all this, and then the lyric, and then it'll come together. And then I'll look, and I'll be like, oh, well, what is this record about?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, as a thinking person who's like, definitely there was like Easy Wonderful and Ganging Up on the Sun. There was more overtly political stuff, but I'm engaged on it in an emotional and an emotional level, like sort of politics. So I would think, but my favorite part of putting out as a record is like finding smart journalists or intelligent people that are like, I know, 3D, where are you? Look over there. But who are like, oh, I sense this thing, and I'm like, oh, that's super cool, because maybe that's your interpretation I totally disagree with, or maybe you're even right and I didn't even know when I was doing it. So
have you had that moment, and I guess you were saying you had, like when you look back on a song, maybe even an older song, where you're like, holy cow, like I was totally writing about that, I didn't even realize it.
I mean, the only thing lyrically that I try, and when I'm thinking about this, is I try, because we have this stated goal of writing these sort of classic pop songs, is not trying to write something, that that's why I liked religion as a thing, because that's pretty like indelible. That's in the thing, and relationships to power and relationships to yourself. Like I felt like early on these melodies were very like kind of, poppy and not throwaway, but I'm like, oh, well, if Morrissey can go, if a 10-ton truck kills the both of us, like if that were a different lyric, it wouldn't have that dichotomy.
It was great when you first really heard that lyric, by the way. The first, because the melody stands out. You're right, in that song, and I remember the first few times, the melody stands out, and you're not even thinking about what he's saying. And then you realize, like, wait a second.
Girlfriend in a coma, I know, it's serious, Johnny Marcel. So it's just like, so I think part of it was I really wanted to write about real stuff and not be afraid of being too revealing or being too dark, knowing that it wasn't going to be one of those things that hit people over the head of just like this morose thing, and that it would help ground the song. So lyrically, I think maybe subconsciously or overtly that I'm always attracted to sort of these darker places, because for whatever reason I feel like it balances out what can be kind of really pretty happy poppy songs.
Well, as a fan, that's where it really gets fun, because it's one thing just to have a good pop song and you listen to it and you have your way with it, and then it's done, But when you get the, when it's onion skin and you have the layers and everything, and you get I love this record, and that's one of the reasons why, because at first it's just a really great pop record.
Right.
And then these lyrics comes, which, by the way, I brought up endlessly, and it had nothing to do with that. It was just, I love the lyric. I tried to take your picture, and you covered your eyes.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much image outside of the obvious thing with that. It's a good record.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, like, boy-girl stuff in there that was really real to me. And, like, I think my wife is a writer, and she, like, kept a blog or did something publicly and was sort of talking about some of our interpersonal stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, man, don't put that out there. She's like, you wrote an entire breakup record about me. I'm like, oh yeah, I think,
fair game.
I think on the points, like, you got a few more posts out there to even begin to equal. So like, I will mine the real life for this stuff,
right.
So yeah.
Suffer for your art and we benefit.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, Ryan.
Yeah,
again,
cool.
I love this record, Evermotion. It's out there. You've been hanging around.
We really didn't do much with our opportunity.
No, but now you're gonna play something for him. Just keep looking around. He's gonna be doing it. And I'll sit here
like this
the whole time.
this is a song called Lightning Rod off an album which I can't remember right now. It goes like this. Standing on a building, I am a lightning rod, and all these clouds are so familiar. Descending from the mountaintops, the gods are threatening, but I will remain the honest soldier. Steady on this high rise, like every lightning rod, and all these clouds are boiling over. Swimming in adrenaline, the sky is caving in. I will remain the honest soldier.
Yeah!